Hi, what's your name and how do you spell it, please?
My name is Josh Hart. It is spelled JoshHart.
All right, Josh, mate. First of all, how are you?
I'm doing very well, mate. Very, very well. Had quite a busy day. But we're here now. Very happy to be joined by you.
Thank you very much, mate. So I want to get straight into it. My first question for you, Josh, how did all of this boxing stuff come about? You've been, obviously, I know you've been into boxing since you were young, but how did like the whole media part of it come up?
So I'd say I first started thinking about it when I was in like year 11. If do you want me to go like fully back to the start of how like I developed the idea and everything.
Whatever works best for you, mate.
Um, so yeah, I was about year 11. Um, and I remember it was my English teacher that first like got me thinking of the idea of being a sports journalist. So like every week we do like a creative writing piece, and the same every week I just write about boxing because I thought if I want to get a good grade, let me write about something that I know I can write about confidently. So I was like, I'll do boxing. And there was one lesson she kept me back at the end, and she said, like, I've been comparing like the writing you do on boxing compared to your other work, and there's like such a big difference in quality of it. And I was like, okay, I don't really know what you're trying to say here. Like, I know I'm good at writing a boxing, but like, what are you suggesting? And she said you should look at like getting into sports journalism, like being a sports writer or something. And I was like, you know what? I never really thought of that because I always just thought, oh, I was going like a basic nine, like not li yeah, limiting myself to a basic 9 to 5 job, just have a simple, comfortable life. Um, but she said that to me, and I was like, oh, do you know what? Let me look into this. So I went home, spoke to my mum about it, and said, my English teacher said, I think she think I'd be a good sports journalist. Like, what do you think? Do you think I should go for it? And she was like, do whatever you want to do, whatever makes you happy. So we looked at college courses. I started going to Nottingham College City Hub, doing a journalism course after I did my GCSEs. I didn't do great in my GCSEs, but got the grades to get into college. So you know, that was the hard part done. As long as I got into college, I was happy. Um, but the course wasn't really what I expected. I'm not gonna like lie here. Like, it's not what I expected. Um, a lot of it is like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but either way, I thought there's gonna be a lot of hands-on type of work, like getting out there. And it wasn't really. So I know they've got to start us off by teaching us everything about it because like journalism isn't something you learn at GCSE. It's something that you only really do if you develop an interest in that like field of air, like that area.
Yeah,
Um, so I started it, and like, they were like, "Oh, if you do like extra work away from college, like you can add it to your grades." I was like, "Okay, if I'm not gonna get like if I'm not gonna get good enough grades within the actual lesson, what can I do away from it?" Um, and I always had the idea of like wanting to work in boxing, being like one of these big boxing reporters. I just didn't know where to start. But then about 2 days after my 17th birthday, me and a couple mates went outside the Lee Wood versus Rich Lara press conference. And they actually went off to McDonald's to get us food.
yeah,
And in the 15 minutes they were gone at McDonald's, I got blagged into the building where the press conference was, and obviously it was locked off to the public. And I got blagged into there um, by Mauricio Lara's team. Obviously, Mauricio Lara was a big Mexican boxer,
yeah,
was in the UK, so he was getting his first world title shot against Lee Wood. Um, Obviously, I was there to support Lee Wood with Lee Wood being from Nottingham, me being from Nottingham. It was kind of like, it was a bit mental that his opponent ended up essentially being the people I need to thank for how well I started within boxing. But they let me in, and I said, I was like I was in shell shock.
mm,
Um, and they said, "Oh yeah, do you want to interview anyone?" I was like, "What? Am I allowed to?" No, well, yeah, you've got your wristband on saying your media, you're allowed to. So I was like, "Okay." Obviously they got me Mauricio Lara, and I was like more than happy just to leave the building with just that. But I ended up then being able to get Eddie Hearn for a couple minutes as well, which I thought was mental.
mm,
Um, so I just continued it from there because I was like, right, it's like it's like I've started the platform now, but it's not like I've just started it with, in no disrespect, a small name boxer. I've started off with Mauricio Lara, who was probably the hottest talking point of British boxing at that stage because he'd come over to the UK 2 times before and upset the apple cart by beating Josh Warrington and then getting a draw against him in Leeds. And obviously the way like Lee Wood said, oh, Lee Wood could have had such an easy fight. And he said he took the hardest hitting man in division, the man who's not going to go down easy. It was such a hot topic, the Wood versus RFI week. So for me to get those two interviews, it brought an unbelievable amount of leverage to my channel, an unbelievable amount of leverage to just me on social platforms in general. Um, and then I just thought, oh, do you know what? I've got to continue it from here because obviously I met some incredible names during the week as well, who gave me some like amazing advice. And I felt it wouldn't have just been disrespect to myself, but it would have been disrespectful of me to not continue and push myself now that these people have pushed me out there and they've given me this opportunity. So I kind of thought, you know what, right, I've got to keep going now. I've just kept going, I've kept going. People at times have said it's cringy, it's this, it's that. Um, but I didn't really care because the way I saw it is I'm a 17-year-old lad and I'm getting to see the sport of boxing, the sport I love so much from a view, and I'm getting the access that no one else would ever get. There's such a select amount of people in boxing that actually get the access to what I get access to, and there's even more people who get even more access than what I do. Um, but it's been a long journey, even though it's only been a year. There's still a lot to come. Um, yeah.
So you say obviously you've just turned 18 and you started when you were 17 about a year ago now. How would you say you've evolved in that year overall?
That's actually a good question. I feel like it's taught me a lot of both, like within my media work and away from it as well. Because it's like away from it, it's taught me like independence. It's definitely helped with my confidence in certain scenarios. In terms of the fact that a lot of people struggle with talking to new people on a daily basis. And it was like every week near enough, I'm either sat in my room, sat where I am now interviewing someone over Zoom and I'm having to like sit there and like it's the worst feeling doing a Zoom one as well, especially at the start because it's someone that you've never spoke to.
Mhm.
It's someone that I've been looking up to on telly for years sometimes. It's like they're about to be on this laptop screen in front of me the way me and you are now.
Yeah,
I'm about to have a conversation with someone that I've been watching for the last 5 years.
yeah,
Um, but not that as well, sometimes like you'll get so excited and then you'll get really let down by it. Um, by the actual interview itself. Um, so it's obviously just taught me just to, I guess, stay composed because I don't want to, like, let's say, let's say I was to get Anthony Joshua on a Zoom call right now, and I had a job to do in getting an interview, whether that job is for me or for another like company that I'm doing freelance or full-time work for. I've got a job to do. It would be daft of me just to sit there and go, "Oh my God, Anthony Joshua's here. I'm just going to fanboy now and be a right arsehole. Let's get my phone out and take a picture and send it to everyone." No, it's he's here because I need to do a job. I need to ask him questions. So it definitely teaches you a lot about composure. Obviously, independence because I'm having to travel 99% of the time. I'm traveling. I'm on a train to somewhere else. I've got to then stay there for long amounts of the day. It's very long days. It teaches you to be committed as well, and in a way trust the process. Because there were times where I was getting 20 odd views on a video,
yeah,
but and I'd be like, oh, do you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. So I'm doing this and I'm not getting these interviews. I'm going to these events in person and like they like, okay, cool, your letters come, but then we're not getting to interview your fighters. So like, what's the point in letting us come to your shows when you're not going to get the interviews? Or these big names are going to do certain interviews for certain people and they won't let these up and coming channels like. So it teaches you a lot about being committed and being resilient and just pushing out and waiting. Because I've sat here for the last year doing it and I'm definitely starting to see a big increase both in one the numbers that I'm performing at like coming out with on social media, but not as well just in person. People know who I am now. The networking is such a big part in journalism in general, not just sports journalism, not just boxing, just in general. Like networking is, I know it's a bit off topic, but again, it's something that I've learned. Um, and sometimes just being in the building is better. Like even if I could go to like an event, and if I could leave with no interviews and feel hard done by, but the people at the event have seen me and they know my name, they know my face, they know my brand, and that's always a good thing. No matter what, I'm always growing in some way, shape, or form, whether it's online or as a person within that industry. Um, but I've definitely noticed massive improvements and massive changes. But also it's been it feels like it's not been a long time, but it has. Um, and I think there's still so much more to come. So I've started it at such a young age. It's not like and I've said this to a load of people. If I started this at like 20, 21 years old, I wouldn't have grown to the way I did. And I'm not even grown that much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
Like there's still so much more to do. But if I started this any later, I wouldn't have got the help and support that I received from so many people within the industry. Um, but I've definitely learned a lot. I've definitely evolved a lot in my interviewing style. I used to start off very cagey, very nervous. Um, Whereas now I'm very calm, I'm very collected. I know how to, and it sounds rude when I say it, but it's with reason, but to switch off from what the person is saying to me. So if someone's interviewing me and I'm at, like, let's say I'm at the end of a topic that I'm talking about with them and I want to move on to something else, I don't want to switch off from my own mind and forget what I want to say. But at the same time, I don't want to be disrespectful to them. So sometimes you just have to forget what they're saying and just listen out for them to stop talking so you can then switch on to the next topic. So it'll be so many times, and it will happen to me again where my head goes blank in the interview, and the amount of times my head's gone blank, I've had to say, "Oh, I'm done then," and that's it. I just wrap up the interview because simply I don't know what to say.
yeah,
But obviously with the nerves as well, like when I'm nervous, it's harder to think. Like, I've had interviews which haven't even lasted a minute before because I didn't know what to say. Like I think my shortest ever interview was 53 seconds
really,
because well it's the struggle. Obviously sometimes it's all about what the person's giving back as well.
yeah,
And obviously not as me, it's more me than them.
yeah,
They're just responding to my questions. If they're giving me boring questions, so be it. But it's more down to me not having the follow-up questions and whatnot. But it's all part of the learning process, do you know what I mean?
yeah. I know exactly what you mean. I was, in all due respect, I was doing that just now, just like thinking of what to say, not ignoring you, but thinking what to say next. You have to like, there's a balance there, isn't there?
Yeah, no, definitely. There's definitely a balance where you've got to pay, like, you've got to pay attention to what I'm saying now.
Yeah,
But let's say you've got someone who can talk for a long time. For example, someone like Eddie Hearn. If I could ask Eddie one question and he could go on for 3 or 4 minutes.
yeah,
3 or 4 minutes doesn't in a 24-hour day, it's not a long time. But in a 10, 15 minute slot I've got with him at this event, that's almost a third of the time. That's a lot of time that he'll take. And in that time as well, I could get so invested into what he's saying. And don't get me wrong, he'll say something that is so easy to respond to. But if I've got something so urgent that I need to like ask him about, I simply have to just switch off from what he's saying to try and remember what I'm saying. Um, that's all part of the industry. It's all part of the learning. It's something that I've had to just learn on the job. I've not really learned all of that from college. This is all just stuff that I've learned in person through my own experiences.
yeah. As you're saying that, I've literally just got a notification up saying that I've got 9 minutes left on my Zoom. So you are a good talker, to be fair. You've
We,
took
we,
up
we
a
can
lot of
we
my time.
can we can like start another call if you need any more. We can start another call and continue.
All right, sound it. So moving on. So I wanted to talk to you about big names that you've interviewed. I've seen a few of them. Personally, for you, who were like your big ones that you look back on, and you're like, wow, I can't believe I did
Oh, I don't because we might actually have to start the new call now because I could sit here for so
that.
long because there's so many names that I'm impressed with and because it's not as well. There's people that I've just met and had photos with that are a bit mental, but I've not interviewed. Like, for example, Nico Milano, one of the biggest YouTubers in the UK,
Yeah,
and I've just casually met him and got a photo with him, and I've got my own brand mic cover in the picture as well.
yeah.
Uh, in terms of interviews, oh, do you know what? Right, most people say Eddie Hearn, and that is up there. It's definitely up there. But the thing is with Eddie, he's so accessible yet unaccessible at the same time.
Yeah.
If you're at a matchroom event, you will get some form of Eddie Hearn that day, whether it's one-on-one or in a huddle, you'll get him. Right, I'm gonna get my YouTube channel up now and have a look because there will be some that will slip from my head.
You've done a lot of
Um,
misfits as well, haven't you? Would you say,
I've done some of the misfit. I'll set it to my most popular because it's normally the big names that do the most views.
yeah,
Um, Mike Perry, UFC fighter. Obviously, UFC is an American industry. They very rarely come to the UK. And that one was mental just more for the sentimental value of the fact that I've like since the age of like 12 or 13, I've been watching UFC quite regularly. Um, And Mike Perry was someone that me and my dad have always been a big fan of. So being able to interview him and like text my dad saying, "Oh, I've just spoke to Mike Perry, Joe, how mental that is."
Yeah.
Obviously Lee Wood, local legend, one of the biggest names in British boxing by now. Um, More as well, just the fact of how he's got to know me on a personal level as well. He's been helping me fundraise for my charity boxing match that I've got coming up next month. He's been sharing it out there for me. Um, who else? Vidal Riley. While he's not necessarily a big name in boxing in terms of social media, again, huge name. He was so closely affiliated with KSI during the beginning stage of his boxing career when he was fighting Logan Paul. Sonny Edwards, again, incredible. He's done so much for me. But I think the biggest one for me has to be Ricky Hatton. Ricky Hatton, he's an all-time British boxing legend, an all-time legend of boxing in general.
Mm.
Went on such an incredible run in boxing. He was what, 45 and 0 or something like that. Um, and obviously fought Mayweather and got knocked out. Fought Pacquiao and was on the end of a very scary knockout and then had a comeback fight about 2 or 3 years later. Um, but not even just for the fact the star of that, like the star power in him. Just his story. He's got such an incredible story behind him. Obviously, if he's got a documentary out now that Sky premiered. All about his not just like his career, but his whole life in general. And something that was so prominent with Ricky was his mental health issues, and especially after he lost his fight. I think it was to Pacquiao. Is where he really started to struggle, and he went on a massive downward spiral. Downhill spiral. There was attempted suicide. There was times where he wasn't talking to his family members or anything. Um, and he was just unreachable. Um, and for him to not only just come back the way he did, but then come back and get in shape to have an exhibition match one last time at Manchester Arena where he'd had so many great nights. For me to get that chance, even though it was only 5 minutes, to just sit there and talk to him about it, it was something that I like. It's truly special to me. And I asked him about his mental health journey. He gave some great advice to the people watching the video, letting them know that you're not alone and everything. And it is something that I think no matter how far I go on within this industry, I think the Ricky Hatton interview and just being able to have a couple minutes just to have a conversation with him is something that will really, really stand out for me.
Yeah. So obviously going back to evolving, and obviously you've only been there for a year. Where do you see yourself in a year from now?
Ooh,
It's a difficult one.
it is, but it isn't at the same time because I think about this a lot because because I'm not there in this industry yet. It's like I know where I want to be and it's working full time and it's having a position where I'm stable in this industry. And it's obviously 'cause at the moment I'm having to put in part-time work at McDonald's. Obviously, I've got my college course as well that I'm doing. Um, so it's quite hard being able to literally tomorrow I'm in the predicament right now as we speak of whether I go to Telford for a media day or do I go to college and then go to my boxing training in the evening because they're both important, but it's what's going to pay off more. But in a year, I'd like to hope I'd be in a full-time position where I'm working for a company or I've brought on enough sponsors and I've got ad revenue off my own channel to the point where I can provide for myself and I can say, listen, I don't need to work at McDonald's anymore. And by this point, I would have finished college. Like I say, I'm not going to need to go to university because boxing is such a different world of media compared to anything else. The amount of people the biggest reporters in boxing, in terms of the YouTube scene of it, don't have degrees. They haven't been to university. They haven't done anything to do with journalism. But it was just something that they just tried. And I'm not saying don't go to uni. I'm not trying to
Taking
put
shots at
people
it.
off that. But it just shows that boxing is so much more accessible. And obviously, in boxing's not everyone's forte. Not everyone likes boxing. A lot of people will be put off by boxing because a lot of people will just see it as you put some gloves on and you smack the daylights at each other.
Mm.
But there's so much that goes on to it. The people within the scene are so friendly as well. Um, like, I've not had one bad experience both on and off camera in boxing. Like since I first started it, I've not got any bad words to say about any single person. Everyone I've met's been incredible. I've met some fantastic people, both boxers and other reporters. Um, and not that as well, it's kind of like just a community because it's quite hard to find people who are big boxing fans. Both at my time at work and college and everything, I've never met anyone who's actually into boxing the way I am. That's because one, I'm a boxing nerd, but two, it is just a sport that people struggle to get into. Um, so doing all of this, meeting the people, it is really good. And it's just it's a bigger reason as to why I'd want to work in the industry. I don't want to just sit there and keep watching it from my sofa. I want to travel the world. I want to see different places, but I want to do that through boxing because I've seen so many people do that before. Um, and I don't see why I can't do it. I'm a young person. People are naturally attracted to the younger audience because they know how to engage, but they know how to engage people more nowadays. Um, and I just do feel like I've got the ability. I feel like I've got the charisma. Maybe not the charisma, but I've definitely got the ability. Got the ability for it. I know what I'm talking about. I'm very well researched. Um, and I just really would like to hope I'm in a position this time next year. I'm sat here and we could be doing this again, and I could be saying rather than funding this and doing it myself, I could say I'm now working for someone where I'm getting paid a full-time wage for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So we are back. Sorry for the change of scenery. Well, not sorry. It's actually a bit of scenery now. I love the posters behind you as well, Josh.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So let's continue. The question I was going to ask at the end of the last one before we ran out of time was, how important to you is networking and speaking to strangers that are obviously more experienced than you? How important is that?
It's very, very important because 9 times out of 10, especially when you're starting out, those people probably know people that will be very beneficial to you. That's something that I've discovered. Um, both with fighters, but not just with fighters and like fighters teams and all those, but other reporters and stuff. Because I've been able to get access to some like really cool things through that, like just through knowing other people. Even like like more social events rather than work events. Like at the back end of last year, I was able to go to the Forged Irish Stout parties with the Matchroom Fight Weeks. And it's things like that, like the networking allows you not just to meet people that will be beneficial for your career, but people that will just be like just good people to meet. Someone that I'm really, really thankful for meeting is Charlie Parsons. Pro if he sees this, he's not gonna like me saying this, but probably the biggest reporter in the UK at the moment. Just secured a new job with Wow Hydrate, which just shows um how mental this industry can be. He has no degree and no journalism qualification. Now he's the head of content at Wow Hydrate, a huge drinks company, partnered with Manchester United, partnered with Boxer. They're so heavily involved with boxing, and it just shows like a company that you wouldn't think needs content has now got a head of content, and that head of content is a 20-year-old kid. I'm calling him a kid, he's older than me, but a 20-year-old lad who got massive through saying Wagwan General to Eddie Hearn. Obviously, there's a lot
Unbelievable.
more to it. There's a lot more to it. Because he is like, if you actually watch his content, he knows what he's talking about. You can tell he's well researched. You can tell that he puts in all the work necessary. Um, and he's just reaping the rewards of what he deserves. He doesn't deserve anything less than this. This is what he should be doing. And him leaving Boxing Social hopefully offers the job up for me. If you see his Boxing Social, I hope you're hiring because I'm here. I'm legal to work now. You can bring me on board if you need me. You got my contacts. Boxing Social Fight Night. Follow me on Twitter. You can bring me in if you want.
I'm sure they're
Um,
watching it.
can we get that bit cut out actually,
I don't think we can, mate.
just for safety? No. Um, well, I'll count myself back in. But no, networking is very, very important. In terms of the work aspect of it. Um, for example, like me is reaching out to someone like Jamie Moore. Jamie Moore, again, he's someone who's had such an influential part of my career. I've actually got his book just there
Yeah.
because he sent that book out to me, just obviously from me and him getting to know each other on a personal level. Um, we become quite good mates, I'd say. Um, I've had numerous conversations with him completely away from boxing, completely unrelated to boxing, um, just because he's a great person. And that just shows there because he sent me that book out for free. He didn't need to send it me, he signed the inside of it. But networking with him, he's opened so many doors for me. He was the person who was able to get me onto the Matchroom press list. And obviously Matchroom were one of the biggest promotions in the UK, one of the biggest in the world. He was able to get me access to them. He got me access to people like Jack Catterall, Akib Fiaz, Chantel Cameron. Obviously Chantel at the time when I first interviewed her had just took a last minute fight with Katie Taylor, which was massive. Katie Taylor's such a big name in the sport, one of the probably the greatest female boxer of this generation, up there as all time. Um, and I was able to speak to Chantel Cameron in a matter of weeks before she went over to Ireland to fight her. Jack Catterall was the people's undisputed champion. He was involved in one of the biggest controversies within boxing, in probably boxing history. Um, and I was able to get some inside information about his signing for Matchroom. I think I found out about 4 days before the signing that he was getting signed to them. Um, and Jamie told me, got me on a Zoom call with Jack. I think I was about an hour late to college because of it, because he could only do a certain time. And I was like, right, what's more important, going to college and writing about Nottingham Castle, or being an hour late, probably getting in a bit of trouble, but getting to interview Jack Catterall about this big new move in his career, where he's going to be going to a promoter that's going to give him what he needs, activity and big fights. And that's exactly what's happened. About a year on from his signing, he'll be rematching Josh Taylor and hopefully putting to bed one of the biggest controversies in boxing history. Um, and I've been able to do all of this and meet all these people just through networking. It's not like I've done everything. I've gone from me to that. It's not like I've gone from A to B straight away. I've gone from A to B to C to etc. I've met everyone and I've got into each position from a helping hand from someone else. Do you know what I mean? It's not
Yeah,
just been a straight, oh, I'm a new kid on the block. People are going to love me straight away. It's not that. It's all about how you carry yourself. And I've carried myself in a good way, a very polite and respectful way, both on and off the camera. And that's what's really helped me. It's what's helped me become liked by people and become respected. Because it's all well and good me going to the events, but if I was going to the events and then being an absolute arsehole to people, I wouldn't get any further access. I wouldn't get any further invitations to these events. Whereas because I've gone, I've been respectful, I've been polite to people, people have been polite to me back. I've got along with everyone I've met. I've never had a bad experience, like I said. Um, it just shows how valuable networking is. While it might be scary talking to new people, trust me, you'll feel better after you have. Because 9 times out of 10, that person will treat you with the same respect that you give them. If let's say if me and you had never spoke before, and you were to, if I was to come to you and say, "Oh, hello, how are you?" You'd just reply like, you wouldn't just turn around and chin me for the fun of it, or look at me and be like, "Oh, who the hell are you?" You
yeah,
wouldn't do that. And it's all just about taking that brave step of talking to that person, because that person could open so many doors for you.
yeah. So let's talk short term. What have you got coming up? Obviously, we're meeting up on Saturday. We're going to Fight Night in Leeds, aren't we?
Yes.
So what else have you
Yeah.
got coming up?
Well, I've got possibly Telford tomorrow for the Abbas Barrow versus Sam Eggington Media Day. But I'm just debating whether it works for me to go. Because obviously I've got my boxing training in the evening, and so I need to prepare for this charity fight that I'm doing. So I'm not trying to get slumped in round one. Um, but I've got Telford on Friday night. I'll be going up for the fight night. Um, to watch that fight. That'll be something that I'll be doing. And obviously, Leeds the next day with you to cover a smaller show from what I'm used to. But I've been to these shows before; they're really good. This one's better than the last one I went to as well, because the last one only had 4 fights. This one has about what, 9 or 10. There's
Yeah,
a lot
something
more
like
fights on this one.
that.
So should be some good entertainment. Then I have possibly Coventry next week. If I don't do Coventry, then it's off to Birmingham for Queensbury. They've got a big Magnificent Seven card again in Birmingham, um, where it shows, I think, 7 title fights. Topped the bill with Nathan Heaney. Nathan Heaney's become one of the most loved people in British boxing in the last 6 months after his massive underdog win against Denzel Bentley for the British title. Um, Nathan's always brought a great crowd of people with him. He's from Stoke. Um, and someone who's always been a bit scared of the camera and doing interviews. But since winning that title, there's been such an increase in his confidence, and now he's happy to do an interview with anybody, like anyone and everyone. If you go up to Nathan and say, "Could I get an interview with you?" He'll be like, "Of course you can." He's just such a likable guy, such a good person, such a down-to-earth person. Everything he does for his people. I think he's done about 3,000 odd tickets for this next fight, which is mental from a personal aspect. And there'll be people buying tickets online knowing he's the main event and wanting to watch him fight. And then after that, I've got Sheffield for Dalton Smith versus Jose Zepeda. Um, a really intriguing fight if you know your boxing. Dalton Smith's been knocking about at British level. He's just won the British title outright. His next step was meant to be European level, where he would face Adam Azim, and what would be such a brilliant fight for British boxing. But Matchroom took him on to that step further. He's facing Jose Zepeda, who is a very well proven world title level fighter. And a win for Dalton Smith there is huge. It will really, really project him into a very good position where the Adam Azim fight would still make sense because it's such a great fight. But if he would put himself in a great position for a world title at the back end of this year, early next year, if he beats Jose Zepeda. And then some other really good fights in that kind. You got Terry Harper versus Sandy Ryan. Terry Harper's stepping up in weight to become, I think, a three-weight world champion. Sandy Ryan's recently split from longtime trainer Clifton Mitchell. So there's so many questions. Pardon me, so many questions around that. You got Ishmael Davis versus Troy Williams. Sorry about flipping out.
Talking too
You've
much.
got Ishmael Davis versus Troy Williamson. A really, really good fight. I've been following Ishmael for a while now. Like the last time I actually interviewed Ishmael was at Ellen Road in Leeds when I last covered one of their shows. I think he'll be there on Saturday. Um, but he steps up in a career toughest fight. He just won an eliminator for the English title. And then decided to not pursue the English and decided to go for Troy Williamson, who former British champion, coming off of razor close decision loss to Kyomi Najako in Belfast. And realistically, again, a win for Ishmael that night would put him into such a great position. But then again, it's such a big fight for Troy because if Troy loses this, that'll be, I think, a second loss on the spin, third loss of his career, and it won't put him in a great position where he will really be sat there and be like, where do I go now? And then after that, London for Wardley versus Clark, probably the one of the biggest British title fights in history. Um, Probably one of the most expensive ones as well. When they did the purse bids last year, I want to say the reported figure that Fabio Wardley was going to get paid for a British title fight was 1.2 million, which absolutely trumps. Bearing in mind, Dalton Smith versus Casey Benjamin at one of the most recent British title fights that I can remember going to purse bids, and it was a generally good name. Dalton Smith got paid, I think, 90 grand for that fight, and Fabio Wardley is about to make 1.2 million, or was going to make 1.2 million. Obviously, the second time round they've made this. Wardley has split from his promotion, Matchroom, and just kind of gone free agent. He went off to Queensbury in October on the Fury and Gardening undercard and beat their star man, David Adelaide. He's doing it again now by going over to Boxer and hopefully beating their star man, Fraser Clark. And it's a really good card as well. You've got Florian Marku versus Chris Congo, a bad blood fight. They don't like each other. It's bound to catch fire at some point. It's a brilliant fight. You've got Vidal Riley versus Mikel Lawal. Mikel Lawal is just coming off his first career defeat where he lost his British title to Isaac Chamberlain. Vidal Riley's been calling out Isaac Chamberlain, but Isaac just has other options on the table. He's got mandatories to deal with. So Vidal's gone, okay, what's the next best thing I can get? He's gone and got himself the guy that has just lost to Isaac Chamberlain. If he does a better job than Isaac Chamberlain on Mikel Lawal, there's no excuse as to why Vidal can't fight for the belt next. You've got Callum Simpson on that card. He's a fantastic talent. I think he'll be there in Leeds on Saturday night as well. He was there last time, so could always get a chance to talk to him. And then you've got the absolute star of British boxing at the moment, Ben Whittaker. He's taking all the headlines. His showboating style, his flashiness. I think he's gained over 1 million odd followers, or over 100,000 followers, millions of views online after his last fight, just for simply the way he fights. He doesn't. It's not a deliberate act. He does it naturally. It's how he is. When you go back and watch him in the amateur days, he boxes the way he does now in the amateurs. People say, "Oh, this is all just a little gimmick, um, just to bring some eyes onto him now." But he's boxed this way his entire career, against the best amateurs in the world. He was dancing on them. He's been doing it again now. He's back out that night, and it is just a really solid card. And that's only the first. That's only the next like 4 weeks as well. I've got so much more to come after that.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't want to go into all of it because there's
Yeah.
so much to talk about, and we'll be here for another hour.
Yeah. Let's move away from professional boxing. Let's talk about your boxing. You obviously got a fight coming up next month, haven't you? How are
Yep.
you feeling about that, and what have you taken away from that? Obviously, being outside the ring, obviously you're in the ring now. What have you learned?
Well, so I've not been in the ring yet. But I'm excited for it because it's something I wanted to do for a while. Like I got into actual boxing training before I got into media work. But I could just never find like the commitment that you'd need to do well in boxing. Whereas as I've got older and as I've watched the sport more and as I've seen the sport more from the inside, you can see how much it means to people and you can see how rewarding it is if it all goes well. And I kind of just sat there, I was like, oh, do you know what? I want to do it. So I've signed up to do a charity fight. I'm raising money for young people's mental health. I'm over halfway into training now. Come Saturday night, I'll be 3 weeks away from fight night, which is really scary actually when I say that now. It's all well and good. When you're over a month, it's like, oh yeah, still a month and a bit. But the second it gets under a month, it's like, oh, it's getting a bit real now.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very excited. I'm very, very ready for it. I've been training. I've been doing the correct work. And I've just been respecting the sport, and I'm just excited for it. Just for the aspect of now, I can somewhat relate to what the fighters go through. Um, Obviously, I know they're making these ring walks on such a bigger level than what I am, but it's something new. It's something different. There's not many reporters who have also been in the ring. Um, I don't think anyway. There might be some who have done it, but they just haven't really spoke about it. But I'm being very open about it. I've been trying to do my best to get as many people to buy tickets as possible. I'm trying to raise as much money for charity as possible. I just want to just do something good with my life. And while I've got this good platform as well, I've been trying to challenge myself. So I've been doing a little bit of training up in Steel City, where you can see the likes of Dalton Smith, Junaid Boston, Sonny Edwards all train. I did a little bit of training up there with their coach Pierce. And he fully corrected my form, corrected my technique. I've possibly doing a little bit of work with Echo Esserman soon, where he'll be getting me fight ready. I've got some other big bits coming up that I'm not going to talk about on camera. Um, but I'll talk about off camera because I don't want to say anything because these are really like fun little
Yeah.
projects I've been working on. Um, but I just need to make sure I can fully make them work. Um, but yeah, the whole process has been enjoyable. The coaches are great. They care about everybody's safety. They're matching us fairly based on our weight and our ability. And it should just be a great night. Obviously, everyone who's got a ticket. You come in to watch people give it their all at least. Okay, the standard of boxing might not be up there, but it'll be people giving it 110% for that, however long the fight lasts.
Yeah. You don't even know who you're fighting yet, do you?
No, we don't. Um, I think I found out on Monday. Our matchups will be decided next week. I don't know if we find out next week. I think they've said they have to have everyone matched up by the end of next week. So hopefully I get an opponent that I'm better than because I kind of don't want to lose. Losing isn't really on my mind at the moment. Um, but no, I think that's the interesting part as well. It's the fact we're working and we don't know who we're fighting. But what we do know is that someone in the room will be our opponent. I think I know who I might have, and if the person I'm thinking is who I get, then I'm in for. I'm happy. I'm very happy if I get the person that is my weight. I know how to beat him, so hopefully I get the person that I want.
Fair enough. If you do win, do you see yourself doing a bit more boxing?
Hmm,
Or,
possibly,
or you
possibly.
retiring?
I've had a couple looks at unlicensed. Um, so there's one company that really takes my fancy, Ashton Promotions. They're an unlicensed company. And unlicensed boxing is run the same way to professional boxing, just it's the standard again, it's a bit lower. And it's a bit different to the amateurs as well, because it's really suited for just people who know people, people who can entertain. But it looks great. They've just done a show at the Motorpoint Arena. If I could say I've boxed at the Motorpoint Arena, I'd be so happy. I'd be really I think I'd just like stop there because not many people get to say, "Oh, yeah, I've boxed at Motorpoint Arena." I don't care if there's 5 people in there when I'm boxing there. Saying that I've boxed at Motorpoint, it's something special. It's somewhere where I've seen so many great nights in boxing and so many sad nights as well. Say sad nights, the one sad night when Lee Wood did get knocked out by Richie Lara. I really did. I was so upset that night. But no, to be able to box at somewhere like that, somewhere like it doesn't hold a lot of value in British boxing, but for me, as a local lad, it holds a lot of value to me in terms of what's happened there before. And even though I'm not anywhere close to matching what's happened there, it's just something special to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's enough questions, mate. Thank you for giving me some of your time. Hopefully we can get to speak again soon. Obviously, I'll see you Saturday as well.
Yep, I'll see you there, mate. Thank you
All right.
for having me on.
All right. See you later, mate.